viewers as well. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday and happy Earth Day. Today is
Happy Earth Day as well.
All right. I want to take off from your message essentially a few days ago to China when you said the Philippines has the right to conduct military drills with the United States. Let me take it forward with asking, are we also pushing and already compromising our relationship with our nearest neighbor?
I don't think so. If you would look at it in a historical context, even before the arbitral ruling was rendered, that was 2026, July to be exact. And years ago, perhaps bata pa tayo, during the 80s, meron ng balikatan exercises. Meron ng balikatan, even during the time President Gerald Ford, President Reagan. So wala pa tayong hidwaan, perceived conflict with China. The balikatan exercise has been there. So it's nothing new. It has just been rebranded to include other allies because it's part of UNCLOS, freedom of navigation, respect for maritime domain, etc., etc. So it's been there. So there's nothing new.
There's nothing new, but we know that at the state we're in, the foreign policy of President Marcos Jr. has been more firm when it comes to reiterating the arbitral ruling, when it comes to being vocal with the West Philippine Sea compared to his predecessor, former President Rodrigo Duterte. Have we also pivoted to the extreme?
It's not an extreme. The Mutual Defense Treaty has been there since 1951. So matagal na rin yun. Perhaps it's just being highlighted now because of the increased presence and the maneuvers conducted regularly by Chinese vessels against our Philippine vessels doing the resupply mission to Ayungin Shoal. So it has been highlighted. And there is now an increased solidarity amongst nations supporting us, including the latest, the G7 countries a few days ago supporting the Philippines' claim. So there's nothing new. Pivot in extreme? Our relationship with the United States has been there ever since the end of the Treaty of Paris, Karen. So matagal na rin yan. There's nothing new. Na-refocus lang yan, re-highlighted lang.
Okay, refocus, highlighted. At one point, President Marcos Jr. said, the Philippines is friends to all, enemies to none. But where we are at this point with lawmakers like yourself and even the statement, for example, the very firm and strong statement of Defense Secretary Gibo Teodoro to China's responses recently, is that still possible at this point? Friends to all, enemies to none.
While we continue to assert our rights in our exclusive economic zone, while we continue to make strong headways in our relationship with the United States, I think there's still that chance of having diplomatic ties with China, considering that China is still a huge trading partner. But again, this is a matter of diplomatic rhetoric, so to speak. I would say, for me, I am in favor of our strong support with our strongest ally right now as well. If you will recall, Karen, I was the one who proposed, modesty aside, of having that our own version of Quad to include Australia, Japan, United States, and the Philippines. So I am in full support of anything that would strengthen our defense capabilities as well as reasserting our rights within our maritime domain. Not just in the West Philippine Sea, but including the Philippine Rise.
All right. Now, just recently, you did propose the Philippine Maritime Zone Law, and this just passed in the Senate, right? How does this make a difference, and how does this help the Philippines on the ground with what's happening in the West Philippine Sea when China does not recognize the victory in itself?
First, it's for signature now of the president. I think it will be signed as soon as. And then number two, it demonstrates our own domestic implementation of the arbitral ruling. China's been saying you cannot implement that. By enacting that law, it demonstrates that we can implement that. It sets forth the clear demarcation of the territorial maritime boundaries. Where does our territorial sea end? Where will the contiguous zone start? What is the end of our seabed insofar as the exclusive economic zone is concerned? So it demonstrates to the whole world that we are a law-abiding member of the community of nations and respectful of our rights as well. So, and our obligations, part of our obligations under UNCLOS is to have that maritime zones law, similar to what Indonesia did. So again, this is not the end of this. After the maritime zones law is passed, we will have, I'm now crafting the committee report, we will have an archipelagic sea lane law. Dito naman dadaan yung mga barko, foreign and domestic, crossing the Philippine archipelagic waters. So all of this would show that the Philippines is reasserting, is complying, and is mindful likewise of the rights of the other members of the international community. And mind you, China is a signatory to the Law of the Sea conference.
Now, can we talk about what essentially is covered with the Philippine Maritime Zone Law? So the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines is 220 nautical miles, right, off the coast. So let's talk about that. What does the law say specifically?
Basically,
220 nautical miles.
Basically, it adopts what the UNCLOS states, that we have sovereign rights. We can do, to laymanize all of this, we can do fishing. We have domain over the seabed, the subsurface. We can explore, exploit, and we conduct marine scientific research within that area, and we can engage other nations as well, Karen. So that's why I've been proposing ever since that we should also have, aside from our Balikatan naval exercises, we should also have alliances with countries not on a non-defense related issues, but fishing, research, marine research, living and non-living marine resources. So I've been proposing that we adopt a regional fisheries marine organization. We have that right now, pero nawala lang. So it would enable us to coalesce with other countries for fishing purposes, exploration of gas and oil, etc., etc. So this would be the byproducts of the maritime zones law, Karen.
All right, and even exploration is included in the PH Maritime Zone Law?
It is included because that's part of the Law of the Sea.
Okay, and what specifically when it comes to exploration? Former Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio has said that under the Constitution, we can only get a third-party contractor, or we can contract another party for exploration. Is that in the same breath?
Perhaps he's referring to foreign technical financial arrangements under the Constitution. But what I'm saying now is that while the Constitution is the Constitution speaks of the exclusive economic zone in the territorial provision, but what I'm saying is that because we have adopted the UNCLOS we have ratified the UNCLOS. That forms part now of our domestic law. So we are now entitled to enter into agreements with other countries. Although there was a Supreme Court decision debunking this, but with UNCLOS, with the Maritime Zones Law reiterating this, I think we're now admitting, and we have to admit that we don't have the technological capability to explore and exploit gas and oil. So kailangan talagang mag-tie up tayo doon. Yung arrangements, whether this is gonna be 60-40 or what, yun siguro yung sinasabi ni Justice Carpio. So again,
no, actually, well, I wanted to ask you that specifically because I remember Justice Carpio was stating that under the Constitution, correct me if I'm wrong with this, Senator, but he stated so many times on Head Start that the Constitution states that everything within the exclusive economic zone is only for the use of the Filipino people, right? So in effect, there have been attempts to go to partner state to state, government to government. And he says that's illegal in the Constitution. You'd have to contract a third party. It's illegal, he says. Yeah, well, that's the interpretation. So let's say to partner, you split when it comes to exploration, state to state. He says that's not allowed under the Constitution. Because it's for an exclusive use of the Filipino people, resources within the EEZ. That's what he says.
I would perhaps beg to disagree. Even when we refer to fishing rights and marine living resources, it is explicit in UNCLOS, which is now part of our Constitution, that we can even share if there is a surplus of fisheries. That's the job of
fisheries. That's fisheries. This is an exploration for energy. This is an exploration, like Malaysia, for example. They're now exploring. This is for gas and oil.
Yes,
so fisheries is very different from gas and oil. So
yes, I agree. I agree.
To share is the big question. Getting a third party
we're looking here now
is to hire.
We're looking now here at investments. We're looking, perhaps Malampaya would be a good example. That's not a total Philippine venture. You have Shell Corporation being there. So I am sure they have also their ROI in the area, because we have to admit, hindi naman natin kayang hukayin doon. We don't have that facilities like what
So that's
Texaco
a third
has.
party. That's what I mean. That's a third party. So it's not, for example, what's pitched with exploration is China and the Philippines, another country and the Philippines. That's what he said.
But most of this, if you speak of Total, speak of Royal Dutch Shell, these are state-sponsored oil companies. Without the Netherlands, there would be no Royal Dutch Shell. Without France, there would be no Total Gas Corporation. So nandun din yon. So what I'm saying is this: we go beyond defense alliances. We go into exploration of gas and oil. We go to the exploration of enhancement, likewise, of our marine living resources, not just in the West Philippine Sea, but even in the Philippine Rise. Karen, dun lang tayo nakafocus. Meron pa yung kabila, which is rich in fisheries. So all of this would be considered, going back to your previous question, as part of the Maritime Zones Law.
Okay. All right. Well, we can talk about Malampaya later on, because I just updated. Actually, Shell has already completed the sale, right? So they're not in Malampaya anymore. It's essentially a consortium of Udena, Shell. Well, there's still Shell Philippines, Shell Philippines, and the PNOC. But moving forward, for example, did the PH Maritime Law cover the gray areas, the gray tactics? For example, in the last few days, there was still water cannon incidents with our Philippine vessels when it was bringing supply to BRP Sierra Madre, and that covered.
Would it prevent?
No, that's not covered in the Mutual Defense Treaty to activate. So does the PH Maritime Zone address these questions of, let's say, the use of water cannon within our EEZ?
Not directly, Karen. So perhaps the question would now shift to, would it prevent violations? No. Similar to all of our laws, would the current revised penal code prevent crimes? Would the National Internal Revenue Code prevent tax evaders? No. But there would be a limit. There would be a bar. There would be a deterrence, so to speak, Karen. So what we did is to adapt the arbitral ruling, expound it through domestic legislation, and make the entire global community be aware that we have this law. This is part of the global rules-based order, and we're adopting it. So I think after the signature is affixed by the president, it's now proper for the Department of Foreign Affairs to submit it to the Secretariat of UNCLOS and the UN General Assembly for its proper notification, Karen.
What do you make of China's response to your law, your proposed law that they said they slammed essentially the Senate? I don't know if it's the Senate per se, but the fact that the Philippines is even strengthening what they described as the illegal arbitration, the decision by forming a law.
That's a natural, perhaps that's a natural knee-jerk reaction coming from their Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm sure they won't accept that law wholeheartedly. So that's I surmise that that's a natural reaction because they never accepted the arbitral ruling in the first place.
All right. Another issue, there's been a lot of talk that and recommendation that the Philippines should actually go to court and sue China for environmental damages. Let's talk about that first. Do you agree with the idea of going back to court? I interviewed a former Solicitor General, Francis Ardeleza, and he says this is a decision the president has to make because it's the state that essentially sues, of course, and it's the state that sets aside essentially part of the budget for going to court. He said roughly during the time of the late President Aquino, more than 1 billion pesos was actually spent for the case, right? For UNCLOS. So that was quite surprising. But do you agree, Senator Tolentino, that we should go to court again for environmental damages?
I think anything that would beef up the position of the Philippines should be done. So perhaps Justice Ardeleza is now referring to the ITLOS. There's another tribunal that can take cognizance of this because we are all aware of the damages done to, I have pictures here, Sabina Shoal and all the other shoals, the coral reef. So these are priceless marine enclaves that is also part of UNCLOS, that the protection of which should benefit the entire humankind. So I think going to court seeking damages would strengthen our position. But I agree with Justice Ardeleza that this is a decision for the president to make.
All right. Now, just recently in the Senate, you said in very strong terms regarding China, is you said they are lying. That is
lying.
Yeah, you said they are lying. You refuted China's accusation. Yes, the context being you refuted China's accusation that the Philippines is destroying Rectobank because there's may paayos, meron tayong payaos in the area. Can we talk about that particular situation? Because that's a whole other situation.
Yes. So perhaps I cannot speak for them. How they can claim that we're the ones destroying the ecosystem in the area, subject to proof again. So if we file a case, and perhaps they can make a counterclaim that you the Philippines, you're the one destroying the coral reefs because of the payaos that BIFAR has been placing. So again, that's subject to proof. But again, perhaps to put it in proper context, when I said they're lying because they have brought more damages. Mischiefry used to be just a reef. Now it's a military base. So amongst others, so we're talking here of a degradation of a marine ecosystem that can no longer be placed in its original position. Ang daming structure na doon. So what more can you say about that? So but the mere placement of this fishing gears would probably not result in a destruction of the environment. These are for fishermen. These are for our fisher folk. So there's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Well, I think on that note, before we end, this is a bit related, but off already your purview.
Off.
Yeah. There's a lot of concern over Chinese students. I'm sure you've heard the story, sir.
Yes.
I've heard 6,000 Chinese students in a private university in Cagayan. Another source tells me it's actually 11,000 Chinese students in Cagayan. I believe there are 2 EDCA sites in the area, and that's facing the West Philippine Sea. So you have some
or more.
Yeah. Yes. So what do you make of that, Senator?
I guess subject to proof. I would want perhaps if there is an investigation that's going to be conducted by the Senate. Incidentally, for purposes of transparency, I just got a letter from the mayor of Tuguegarao herself, Mayor Ting, explaining everything. It's a long letter I received in my Viber account. But again, what she's been saying is that they've been trying to project Tuguegarao as a center of learning and education. So let's have an investigation whether this is really true or not. Because come to think of it, is this a mere coincidence? Come to think of it, would you have 11,000 spies? Come to think of it, were they vetted before by the CHED and the Bureau of Internal Immigration and Deportation? Kung talagang mali yung naging proseso, i-deport na lang natin. Yeah, I agree that this can be alarming if some of them are part of a sleeper cell, but if they're really part of a plan to project Cagayan, Tuguegarao as a center of learning, kaya nga kailangan muna natin investigation before we can surmise and conclude na mali ito, ganito. We need evidence. Karen. So I'll be part of that investigation kung magkakaroon nun.
Okay, very good. I'm curious, another one is, do you still think it's worth to have an investigation on the supposed gentleman's agreement that former President Duterte made with Chinese President Xi Jinping? And now that we know that now Ambassador Teddy Locsin, when he was Foreign Affairs Secretary, signed an agreement. I mean, is this still worth an investigation today, or should it be moving forward at this point?
Moving forward probably would be the best term. Sabi ni Presidente, if there was an agreement, quote unquote, I have already rescinded that agreement, so there is no more agreement. If there was an agreement, how can there be an agreement that would be applicable if it was not ratified by the Senate under the Constitution, we need to ratify an agreement. How can an agreement be made secret and not disclosed to the Filipino people when they're supposed to be the ones affected by an agreement? So moving forward, I think we should now discuss things that would not be destructive. Karen, ano yung dapat natin gawin after the passage of the Philippine Maritime Zones Law? Ano yung dapat natin gawin para matulungan yung ating mangingisda? Ano yung dapat nating gawin para mapalakas yung presence natin sa Second Thomas Shoal and the other areas, Karen, not just in the exclusive economic zone in the West Philippine Sea, but again, I reiterate doon sa Philippine Rise, Karen. So let's move forward. Let's accept what the current chief architect of Philippine diplomacy is doing, and then let's unite as one nation, Karen.
All right. Just to add, my last question is: there was a lot of push at one point for economic changes in the 1987 Constitution, in the Charter. What's happened? It seems that it's not. Where is it now, Senator? Is there still a push?
You're referring to, there are two.
Okay.
One is RBH 6, which was passed by the lower house. The second one is RBH 7, which is still pending in a committee of the Senate. So it's still in the committee level. I'm not the chairman of the committee, but I was one of those who filed the bill asking for economic reforms in our Constitution. Dalawa kami ni Senator De La Rosa. So if you're gonna ask me, payag ka ba doon? Ako nga yung author, Karen. One of the
Ang
authors.
tanong ngayon, kaya ko tinanong ito, is given that there's news, right, of an influx of Chinese students in Tuguegarao, and then part of the changes is to open education, right? So it's always, there are two sides to this.
Yes.
You open to the West, right? But also
the educational,
go
the
ahead.
educational reforms would refer to investments in educational institutions. We need more medical schools. We need more high-quality medical schools. We need more schools that would provide more digital access to our students, Filipino students, I'm referring to. So there's a big well of difference when you speak of accepting foreign students, which we have been doing ever since. Dito galing sa atin yung mga pilots sa iba't ibang bansa, sa mga flying schools natin. So even yung mga Nigerian medical students, dito sa atin, graduate lahat yan. So magkaiba yan, Karen. Accepting foreign students as differentiated from accepting investments to fund our tertiary education, Karen.
All right. Okay, may pinapatanong po dito, sir, no? This is from the news desk. Interesting. We move to politics. Okay.
Dami mong tanong, Karen.
Oo nga. As a former supporter of President Duterte as PDP Laban chair, right? Over the weekend has already endorsed his re-election bid. Okay. Are you still looking at this as an advantage, given somehow the negative impression being earned by former President Duterte on the West Philippine Sea issue? And what's your reaction to the party's decision to drop Laban from the PDP Laban's name? So two things. Is a Duterte endorsement at this point for you still a plus?
I value President Duterte's endorsement. That's it. Tayo po ay tumatanaw ng utang na loob. Number two, yung pag-aalis ng Laban, I'm not part of that. Perhaps there was a committee na nag-isip dyan, nag-decide. I'm not privy to that. But siguro iniisip ko lang to drop the name Laban would be a process, an evolutionary process of a shift in ideology, because Laban would always speculate and conclude fight. It would always be confrontational and oppositional. So perhaps the rebranding ito lang, ano ko lang to, palaisipan ko lang to. The rebranding would probably be directed to moderate voters or Filipinos na hindi naman gusto lang 42 years ng laban. Hindi naman po pwedeng 42 years ng nakikipag-away. So for me siguro tama 'yon, nawala na yung confrontational stance and that's an evolution of ideology and perhaps appeal for unity, so to speak, to increase their mass base.
Okay, here's another one, my last one.
Ang hirap na, mahirap ka rin.
Where do you stand with Pastor Apollo Kibuloy? You have colleagues who've said that he did not receive due process, right? But you have other colleagues, I mean, a warrant was issued. What do you make of this whole situation? Should he surrender? Tell me.
Siguro, Karen, as chairman of the Committee on Justice and Human Rights, we have to differentiate between court-issued warrants and warrants issued by a committee of the Senate. I always believe that the warrant issued by the Senate is just by virtue of an implied power, though coercive, to secure the attendance of a resource person in aid of legislation. And that's, you have a Supreme Court case, that's the Neri case. But when it comes to court-issued warrants, I would always believe that courts issuing a warrant would be by virtue of their inherent powers. There's a case filed, etc., etc. So we've read all of this. I've been saying respect the rights of Pastor Kibuloy. Yung Davao case is bailable. So from 70,000, I think 75,000 to 200,000 pesos, pwede naman siyang magbayad. He has his lawyers. And then the Pasig RTC, from anecdotal reports, would probably be a non-bailable case. But if you look at the rules, the rules of court, while it is not a matter of right to have that be considered bailable, perhaps if he can just submit himself to the jurisdiction of the court, his lawyers can find avenues to project and to prove that his guilt is not strong.
But what you're saying, he should submit. He should
submit to Philippine authorities now in response to the warrants, and it would show that he himself is respecting the rule of law, fairness, and justice. So it's now up to his lawyers to do that, to participate in the legal proceedings to show his innocence. Incidentally, the innocence is a constitutional right. So kailangan dumaan sa proseso. So nasa abogado na niya yan na how to submit their client to the authority and jurisdiction of the courts, showing respect for the rule of law.
On that note, I want to thank you for joining me today, Senator Francis Tolentino. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. We're going to take a quick break, Head Start. We'll be right back.